Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cat Tales, a Warrior Cats Reread podcast. I'm your host, Coffee, and today we're reading through chapters 26 through 30 of Forest of Secrets, the third book of the first Warrior Cats arc, and these are the last chapters of the book, which means by the end of this episode we will be halfway through the first arc. We got through it pretty fast. Buckle in, this is going to be another longer one, I believe. Also, I want to acknowledge, I've meant to acknowledge this for the last 3 episodes, but I kept forgetting. For commenters on Apple Podcasts or anything other than Spotify, I've read all your comments. Thank you so much for all the feedback. I do read the comments. I just am unable to reply to them because of the way Apple Podcasts works. I can't reply to them, but just know I've read them. I read all the comments. Another thing that I've read in these comments is a couple people have asked me questions about me, which is really, really sweet. I'm thinking about doing a Q&A episode sometime in the future. I don't think I have enough questions that have come in to warrant a full episode for them, but I think a Q&A would be really nice. That'd be really fun. Maybe after we finish the first arc. I'm still trying to get more eyes and ears on this podcast. So if I end up getting enough questions, we can do a special Q&A episode, and I think that would be really fun. If you guys have any questions for me, or about my opinions on characters, or anything of the sort, feel free to ask. Like I said, I do read them, and I would be thrilled to do a Q&A episode sometime in the future, just not now. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. Feel free to leave any questions for me that you may have, but no pressure, of course. If you guys want to do a Q&A, if a lot of you do and sound off about that, I can post on my socials, which the links are in the description of this video or this episode. You can send me a question there. All right. We're going to get into today's episode. It's an immediate follow-up to the ending of chapter 25, in which Fireheart and Cloudpaw are out on a patrol, and they run into RiverClan warriors who say they need to speak to Bluestar. Chapter 26, quote, Fireheart tried to hide his misgivings as he led the 3 RiverClan warriors down the tunnel and into the camp. Clan cats rarely visited each other's territory, and he wondered what was so urgent that it couldn't wait until the next gathering. Alerted by Cloudpaw, Bluestar was already seated at the foot of the high rock, and Fireheart's apprehension increased when he saw Tigerclaw was beside her. Thank you, Cloudpaw. Bluestar dismissed the apprentice as Fireheart approached with the newcomers. Take your fresh kill to the elders. Cloudpaw looked disappointed to be sent away, but he went without protest. Leopardfur walked up to Bluestar and dipped her head respectfully. Bluestar, we come to your camp in peace, she began. There's something we must discuss. Tigerclaw let out a low, disbelieving growl, as if he would rather be ripping the fur off the intruding cats, but Bluestar ignored him. I can guess what brings you here, she meowed. But what is there to discuss? What's done is done. Any punishment for Graystripe will be handled by his own clan. While she spoke to Leopardfur, Fireheart noticed her eyes kept straying to Mistyfoot and Stonefur. It was the first time Fireheart had seen his leader with the RiverClan warriors since she had admitted to him that they were her kits. He did not think he was imagining the wistfulness in her blue eyes as she looked at them. She better be careful. She can't be too obvious about that. What you say is true, Leopardfur agreed. The 2 young cats were foolish, but Silverstream is dead, and Graystripe's punishment is not for RiverClan to decide. We've come here about the kits. What about them? Asked Bluestar. They're RiverClan kits, meowed Leopardfur. We've come to take them home. RiverClan kits? Bluestar's eyes narrowed. Why do you say that? And how do you know about them? Tigerclaw demanded, glaring in fury as he sprang to his paws. Have you been spying, or did some cat tell you? He turned on Fireheart as he spoke, but Fireheart stood his ground, and Mistyfoot kept quiet, not betraying him by so much as a glance. Tigerclaw couldn't know for sure that he had told Mistyfoot, and Fireheart refused to regret what he had done. RiverClan had the right to know. Sit down, Tigerclaw, murmured Bluestar. She flashed a look at Fireheart, and he realized that his leader guessed what he had done, as surely as if she had seen him cross the river. But she didn't intend to give him away. Who knows, perhaps a RiverClan patrol saw what happened. Such things can't be hidden for long. But Leopardfur, she went on, turning back to the visiting deputy, the kits are also half ThunderClan, and one of our queens is taking good care of them. Why should I give them to you? Kits belong with their mother's clan, Leopardfur explained. RiverClan would have raised these kits if Silverstream had lived, without knowing who the father was, and that makes them ours by right. I mean, if Silverstream was still alive, this would make more sense, but she's not. So, logically, they should be with Graystripe, because he's their only remaining parent. Bluestar, you can't send the kits away. Fireheart couldn't stop himself from interrupting. They're all Graystripe has to live for. Fireheart saying, Graystripe will kill himself if you take them away, is wild. A growl rumbled once again in Tigerclaw's throat, but it was Bluestar who answered. Fireheart, be quiet. This doesn't concern you. Yes, it does, Fireheart dared to meow. Graystripe's my friend. Silence, hissed Tigerclaw. Does your leader have to tell you twice? Graystripe is a traitor to his clan. He has no right to the kits or anything else. Rage flooded through Fireheart. Had Tigerclaw no respect for Graystripe's terrible grief? He whirled on the deputy, held back from springing at him only because cats of another clan were looking on. Tigerclaw bared his teeth in a snarl. Bluestar flicked her tail angrily at both of them. Enough, she ordered. Leopardfur, I admit RiverClan has some right to the kits, but so does ThunderClan. Besides, the kits are small and weak. They can't travel yet, especially across the river. It's too dangerous. Leopardfur's hackles began to rise, and her eyes narrowed to slits. You are just making excuses. No, Bluestar insisted. Not excuses. Would you risk the kits' lives? I'll think about what you have said and discuss it with my warriors and give you our answer at the next gathering. Now get out of our camp, growled Tigerclaw. Leopardfur hesitates, but leaves the camp with her warriors. Fireheart pleads with Bluestar once more that the kits should stay in ThunderClan. Bluestar knows that it would be terrible for Graystripe if the kits left, but she also wants to protect the clan from a possible greater conflict with RiverClan. All over half-clan kits. Bluestar reassures Fireheart that they still have time until the gathering. Fireheart worries about what he's going to tell Graystripe, who was not around for this interaction. By that night, all the clan knows about RiverClan's visit. The clan is divided. Some want to be rid of the half-clan kits, some want to fight only so that RiverClan doesn't quote-unquote win. Graystripe does not leave his den and hasn't been eating or sleeping. He looks, quote, gaunt and ill, according to Fireheart. Quote, is there anything you can do for him? Fireheart asked Yellowfang, going to her den as soon as he woke the following day. He won't eat, he can't sleep. The old medicine cat shook her head. There's no herb to heal a broken heart, she murmured. Only time will do that. I feel so helpless, Fireheart confessed. Your friendship helps, Yellowfang rasped. He might not realize it now, but one day She broke off as Cinderpaw appeared and dropped a bunch of herbs at Yellowfang's feet. Are these the right ones? She asked. Yellowfang gave the herbs a sniff. Yes, that's right, she mewed. You can't eat before the ceremony, she added, but I will. I'm too old and creaky to get to High Stones and back without something to keep me going. She crouched in front of the herbs and began to gulp them down. High Stones? Fireheart echoed. Ceremony? Cinderpaw, what's going on? It's the half-moon tonight, Cinderpaw mewed happily. Yellowfang and I are going to Mothermouth so I can be made a proper apprentice. She gave a joyful wriggle. Fireheart felt a wave of relief that she seemed to be over her despair after Silverstream's death, and was looking forward again to her new life as a medicine cat. Her eyes had recovered all their old sparkle, but there was a new wisdom and thoughtfulness in their blue depths now. Fireheart feels melancholic at this. He realizes that Cinderpaw is growing up. He's happy for her, but he misses her apprenticeship with him. He offers to travel with them as far as Four Trees, and they accept. As they leave, Cloudpaw asks to come with them, and nobody objects because it'll keep him out of trouble. So all four set out. On the way, Fireheart explains the ceremony to Cloudpaw. Quote, the ceremonies are secret, growled Yellowfang. So don't ask Cinderpaw when she comes back. She isn't allowed to tell you. But every cat knows that she'll receive special powers from StarClan, Fireheart added. I forgot this was a thing. Aren't medicine cats born with powers to some degree? Or once they become a medicine cat, they're all of a sudden blessed with their powers? I think the authors forgot about this in later books, because lots of times clan cats who become medicine cats are born with special, visions or powers. Special powers? Cloudpaw's eyes grew round, and he gazed at Cinderpaw as if he expected her to start uttering prophecies there and then. Don't worry, I'll still be the same old Cinderpaw, she assured him with an amused purr. That won't ever change. It gets hotter as they approach Four Trees. Fireheart tells Cloudpaw to keep alert for scents of WindClan and ShadowClan. The prey is running well today, so it's hard to be concerned about much else besides the scents. As they reach the hollow of Four Trees, Fireheart sidles up beside Cinderpaw to talk to her. Quote, are you sure about what you're doing? He asked quietly. Is it what you really want? Of course! Don't you see, Fireheart? Cinderpaw's eyes searched his, suddenly serious. I have to learn as much as I can so that no cat dies because I couldn't save them, like Silverstream. Fireheart flinched. He longed for a way to persuade his friend that Silverstream's death was not her fault, but he knew he would be wasting his breath. And will that make you happy? You know medicine cats can't ever have kits, he reminded her, thinking of how Yellowfang had been forced to give up Broken Tail and keep her bond with him a secret. You know, a woman's purpose isn't just to have kits. Have you considered that maybe she doesn't want them? Cinderpaw purred to comfort him. The whole clan will be my kits, she promised. Even the warriors. Yellowfang says they have about as much sense as newborns sometimes. She took a pace forward that brought her to Fireheart's side, and rubbed her face affectionately against his. But you'll always be my best friend, Fireheart. I'll never forget you were my first mentor. Aww. They exchange goodbyes after this, and Fireheart feels a sense of finality. Even though Cinderpaw is obviously coming back from High Stones, she will have a new duty appointed by StarClan. Fireheart and Cinderpaw catch up with Yellowfang and Cloudpaw. Cinderpaw gives Fireheart one final lick and follows Yellowfang. Fireheart feels bittersweet regret for the life that could have been hers. There's a time skip. It's the morning after Cinderpaw returned from Highstones. She looks refreshed and has a new sparkle, and quote, Fireheart tried hard not to feel that he had lost her to an unknown path. He's really affected by this. Maybe he did have some sort of feelings for her. Because I know in the fandom, people ship Fireheart and Cinderpaw. I'm not going to spoil her medicine cat name later on for those who haven't read the books. I get why people ship them now. Especially because Cinderpaw, even though she's an apprentice, she is pretty much a full-grown cat at this point, so it's not a weird age gap thing anymore at this point, from my view. I know Sandstorm obviously has a crush on Fireheart, but they're barely interacting. He's interacting more with Cinderpaw, so this is really interesting. Anyway, back in the present, he asks Graystripe if he wants to join him on overseeing Cloudpaw's hunting mission he was assigned to by Tigerclaw. Tigerclaw had been busy that morning, sending out many patrols, one with Whitestorm to renew the scent markings along the RiverClan boundary, and another with Sandstorm to hunt around Snake Rocks. Fireheart doesn't know exactly where he's going to take Cloudpaw. Graystripe declines because he's going to visit the kits and watch them at Goldenflower's request. He privately thinks Goldenflower wants him to give her space. He accepts that and goes to find Cloudpaw, unsure of where to take him for his mission. He tells Cloudpaw to go toward Two Lake Place and to meet him by Princess's fence. Cloudpaw then asks if he can talk to Princess if she's there, and Fireheart agrees as long as he doesn't go over the fence and he catches lots of prey first. So Cloudpaw sprints off, excited, to Fireheart's amusement, and he follows Cloudpaw out of the camp. Fireheart tracks his strong scent through the forest, pleased to discover he's caught quite a few pieces of prey. Quote, impressed that his apprentice was hunting well so early in his training, Fireheart put on speed, hoping to catch up and watch him stalking his prey. But before he reached Two Lake Place, he caught sight of Cloudpaw racing back along his own scent trail, his fur bristling and a wild light in his eyes. Cloudpaw. Fireheart ran forward to meet him, his body tingling with sudden fear. Cloudpaw skidded to a halt, his claws scattering pine needles, barely managing to avoid a collision with Fireheart. Something's wrong, he panted. What? Icy claws clutched at Fireheart's belly. Not Princess? No, nothing like that. But I saw a Tigerclaw, and there were some strange cats with him. At Two Lake Place? Fireheart meowed sharply. Where we smelled them the day we visited Princess? That's right. Cloudpaw's whiskers twitched. They were huddled together, just on the edge of the trees. I tried to get closer to hear what they were saying, but I was afraid they would see my white fur. So I came to find you. This is the one time he is actually smart about handling things. You did the right thing, Fireheart told him, his mind racing frantically. What were these cats like? Did they have a clan scent? No, Cloudpaw wrinkled his nose. They smelled of crow food, and you didn't recognize them. Cloudpaw shook his head. They were thin and hungry looking. Their fur was all mangy. They were horrible, Fireheart. And they were talking to Tigerclaw. Fireheart frowned. That was the detail that worried him. He could take a guess at who the strange cats were. The former ShadowClan warriors who had left their clan with Broken Tail when he had been driven out. They had caused trouble before, and there were no other rogues that Fireheart knew of in the forest now. But what Tigerclaw was doing with them was a mystery. All right, he mewed to Cloudpaw. Follow me, and keep as quiet as if you were creeping up on a mouse. He headed cautiously toward Two Lake Place, stalking from paw to paw over the softly cracking pine needles. Long before he reached the edge of the forest, he picked up the strong reek of cats. The only one he could identify was Tigerclaw, and as if the thought had summoned him, the deputy came into sight at that moment, bounding through the trees in the direction of the camp. There was no undergrowth to provide cover under the pine trees. All Fireheart and Cloudpaw could do was flatten themselves in one of the deep furrows carved out by the tree-cut monster and pray to StarClan they wouldn't be seen. A group of scrawny warriors poured after Tigerclaw. Their jaws were parted eagerly and their eyes blazed. All the cats were so intent on the trail that they never noticed Fireheart and Cloudpaw, crouching in their scant cover a few rabbit hops away. Fireheart lifted his head and watched them race out of sight. For a moment he was frozen with horror and disbelief. There were more of them, he realized, than the group who had left ShadowClan with Broken Tail moons before. Tigerclaw must have recruited more loners from somewhere, and he was leading them straight toward the ThunderClan camp. This is the moment. Fireheart was right all along. That's the end of chapter 26. I'm gonna get right into chapter 27. Fireheart tells Cloudpaw to run like he's never run before. There's a slight chance they can beat Tigerclaw to camp. Fireheart realizes that Tigerclaw sent out so many patrols there are barely any warriors left to defend the camp, which means he did that on purpose. Quote, launching himself down the steep side of the ravine with Cloudpaw scrambling down behind him, Fireheart let out a yowl. ThunderClan! Enemies! Attack! He hurled himself into the tunnel, and at the same moment he heard another yowl from the camp ahead. To me, ThunderClan! It was the familiar battle cry, but the voice was Tigerclaw's. A thought flickered into Fireheart's shocked mind. What if he had made a mistake? What if the rogues had been chasing Tigerclaw, not following him? He burst into the clearing just as Tigerclaw whirled on the band of rogues, who scattered, yowling from his attack. The deputy certainly looked as if he were trying to drive enemies from the camp, but Fireheart was close enough to see that his claws were sheathed. His heart plummeted. Tigerclaw's brave defense was all a sham. He had brought these enemy cats here, but he was cunning enough to conceal his own treachery. What a dirty dog. What a dirty dog. So Fireheart launches himself into the fight at a rogue, and he fights that rogue off quickly. As he scans the camp for another enemy, he spots Broken Tail pouncing on Dustpelt, his guard. Fireheart realizes he's fighting for the rogues, not for ThunderClan, who has been sheltering and defending him for months. Fireheart also sends Cloudpaw to catch up with White Storm's patrol and alert them about what's going on. Quote, a tiny picture flashed into Fireheart's mind of Tigerclaw and Broken Tail laying side by side, sharing tongues. That had not been evidence of the deputy's compassion. Tigerclaw had been planning this with the former ShadowClan tyrant. Poor Fireheart gave Tigerclaw the benefit of the doubt for so long, and it turns out he was evil the entire time, just like Fireheart suspected. So Fireheart rushes to help Dustpelt, but he is stopped by another rogue. He tries to fight them off, but he's being overpowered when Thornpaw rescues him by biting the tail of the rogue and dragging him off Fireheart. Fireheart thanks him, scanning for enemies again. Dustpelt is gone, and Broken Tail is stumbling into the clearing, making a strange wailing sound. It sounds less than mortal to Fireheart. Okay, so he's just actually a real-life demon. Broken Tail's actually a real-life demon. Quote, the clearing heaved with struggling cats, but as Fireheart posed himself to rejoin the fray, he realized something that sent an even colder pang of fear along his spine. Where was Bluestar? In a heartbeat, Fireheart realized that he couldn't see Tigerclaw either. Every instinct told him that danger was looming. He dodged around Willowpelt, who was clinging to the back of a much bigger rogue, her teeth fastened in his ear, and made for Bluestar's den. To his relief, as he approached the entrance, he heard Bluestar meow from inside. We can worry about that later, Tigerclaw. The clan needs us now. For a few heartbeats, there was no reply. Then Fireheart heard Bluestar's voice again, surprised. Tigerclaw, what are you doing? An answering snarl. Remember me to StarClan, Bluestar. Tigerclaw, what is this? Bluestar's meow was sharper now, edged with anger, not fear. I'm the leader of your clan, or have you forgotten that? Not for much longer, Tigerclaw growled. I'm going to kill you, and kill you again. As many times as it takes for you to join StarClan forever. It's time for me to lead this clan. Bluestar's answering protest was suddenly cut short by the sound of paws thudding against the hard floor of the den, followed by a dreadful snarling. Damn! I know I said no curse words, but this requires a damn! That's the end of chapter 27. Wow. Getting right into chapter 28, quote, Fireheart sprang forward and burst through the curtain of lichen. Tigerclaw and Bluestar were writhing on the floor of the den. Bluestar's claws scored again and again across Tigerclaw's shoulder, but the deputy's greater weight kept her pinned down in the soft sand. Tigerclaw's fangs were buried in her throat, and his powerful claws raked her back. Traitor! Fireheart yowled. He flung himself at Tigerclaw, slashing at his eyes. The deputy reared back, forced to release his grip on Bluestar's throat. Fireheart felt his claws rip through the deputy's ear, spraying blood into the air. Bluestar scrambled to the side of the den, looking half-stunned. Fireheart could not tell how badly she was hurt. Pain lanced through him as Tigerclaw gashed his side with a blow from his powerful hindpaws. Fireheart's paws skidded in the sand, and he lost his balance, hitting the ground with Tigerclaw on top of him. The deputy's amber eyes blazed into his. Mouse dung, he hissed. I'll flay you, Fireheart. I've waited a long time for this. Fireheart summoned every scrap of skill and strength he possessed. He knew Tigerclaw could kill him, but in spite of that, he felt strangely free. The lies and the need for deceit were over. The secrets, Bluestar's and Tigerclaw's, were all out in the open. There was only the clean danger of battle. He aimed a blow at Tigerclaw's throat, but the deputy swung his head to one side, and Fireheart's claws scraped harmlessly through thick tabby fur. But the blow had loosened Tigerclaw's grip on him. Fireheart rolled away, narrowly avoiding a killing bite to the neck. Kitty pet, Tigerclaw taunted, flexing his haunches to pounce again. Come and find out how a real warrior fights. He threw himself at Fireheart, but at the last moment, Fireheart darted aside. As Tigerclaw tried to turn in the narrow den, his paws slipped on a splash of blood and he crashed awkwardly onto one side. Dang, a splash of blood. This is an intense fight then. At once, Fireheart saw his chance. His claws sliced down to open a gash in Tigerclaw's belly. Blood welled up, soaking into the deputy's fur. He let out a high-pitched caterwaul. Fireheart pounced on him, raking claws across his belly again, and fastening his teeth into Tigerclaw's neck. The deputy struggled vainly to free himself, his thrashing growing weaker as the blood flowed. Fireheart let go of his neck, planting one paw on Tigerclaw's outstretched foreleg and the other on his chest. Bluestar, he called. Help me hold him down. Bluestar was crouching behind him in her moss-lined nest. Blood trickled down her forehead, but that did not alarm Fireheart as much as the look in her eyes. They were a vague, cloudy blue, and she stared horror-struck in front of her as if she was witnessing the destruction of everything she had ever worked for. When Fireheart spoke, she jumped like a cat woken suddenly from sleep. Moving with dreamlike slowness, she crossed the den and pinned herself across Tigerclaw's hindquarters, trapping him. Even with wounds that would have stunned a lesser cat, Tigerclaw still fought to free himself. His amber eyes burned with hatred as he spat curses at Fireheart and Bluestar. A shadow fell across the entrance to the den, and Fireheart heard hoarse, ragged breathing. He turned his head, expecting to see one of the invaders, but it was Graystripe. Dismay flooded over Fireheart at the sight of his friend. He was bleeding heavily from his flank and one foreleg, and blood bubbled from his mouth as he stammered, "Bluestar, we—" He broke off, staring. "Fireheart, what's happening?" "Tigerclaw attacked Bluestar," Fireheart told him quickly. "We were right all along. He is a traitor. He brought the rogues to attack us." Graystripe went on staring and then shook himself as if he had just climbed out of deep water. "We're losing the fight," he meowed. "There are too many of them. Bluestar, we need your help." The leader looked at him but did not reply. Fireheart could see that her eyes were still dull and unseeing, as if the discovery of the truth about Tigerclaw had bruised her spirit beyond repair. "I'll come," Fireheart offered. "Graystripe, can you help Bluestar hold on to Tigerclaw? We'll deal with him when the battle's over." "You can try, kitty pet," Tigerclaw sneered through a mouthful of sand. Graystripe limped across the den and took Fireheart's place, planting his claws on Tigerclaw's chest. For a heartbeat, Fireheart hesitated, uncertain that wounded Graystripe and Bluestar in a state of shock would be a match for Tigerclaw. But the deputy was still losing blood, and his struggles were definitely getting weaker. Swiftly, Fireheart turned and raced outside again. The clearing is overrun by rogues, but there are still ThunderClan cats fighting furiously. Fireheart is exhausted from his fight with Tigerclaw, and doesn't know how much longer he'll last. He glimpses a blue-gray cat dashing into the fight, yowling. At first, he believes it to be Bluestar, but instead realizes it's Mistyfoot. More RiverClan warriors and White Storm's patrol swarm the camp, and the rogues instantly scatter without Tigerclaw to lead them. Within moments, they're all gone, except Broken-Tail, who is scrabbling on the ground, mewling like a sick kid. Quote, "The RiverClan cats were gathering together again with murmurs of concern as Fireheart limped across to them. "Thank you," he meowed. "I've never been so glad to see any cat in my life." "I recognize some of the old ShadowClan warriors," Leopardfur told him gravely. "The ones who left with Brokenstar." "Yes." Fireheart didn't want to say anything yet about Tigerclaw's involvement. "How did you know we needed help?" he asked, puzzled. "We didn't," replied Mistyfoot. "We came to talk to Bluestar about—" "Not now," Leopardfur interrupted, though Fireheart guessed that Mistyfoot was going to say about the kits. "ThunderClan needs time to recover. They are obsessed with these kits." She dipped her head graciously toward Fireheart. "We are glad to have helped. Tell your leader we will return soon." "Yes, I will," Fireheart promised. "And thanks again." He watched the RiverClan cats leave, then looked around, feeling his shoulders sag with tiredness. The clearing was littered with blood and fur. Yellowfang and Cinderpaw were beginning to examine the injured cats. Though Fireheart hadn't noticed them in the fighting, they both bore the marks of enemy claws. So the battle was so bad, even the Medicine cats were fighting. He took a deep breath. It was time to deal with Tigerclaw, but he did not know if he could summon the strength. His wounds throbbed with pain, and every muscle in his body shrieked a protest with each step. As he limped toward Bluestar's den, a voice sounded behind him. "Fireheart, what happened?" He turned to see Sandstorm, newly returned at the head of her hunting patrol, with Cloudpaw panting just behind her. She was staring around the clearing as if she couldn't believe what she saw. Fireheart shook his head warily. "Broken-Tail's outlaws," he grunted. "Again?" Sandstorm spat with disgust. "Maybe Bluestar will think twice about sheltering Broken-Tail now." "It's more complicated than that." Fireheart felt unable to explain right then. "Sandstorm, will you do something for me and not ask questions?" Sandstorm gave him a suspicious look. "Depends what it is. Go to Bluestar's den and deal with what you find there. Better take another warrior, too. Brackenfur, will you go? Bluestar will tell you what to do." "At least I hope so," Fireheart added to himself, as Sandstorm, still frowning, jerked her head at Brackenfur and headed for the high rock. Out of everything that had happened, what disturbed Fireheart most was how Bluestar seemed to have lost her will to lead her clan. Fireheart stands in the middle of the clearing, unsure what to do next, watching Yellowfang drag a barely conscious Broken-Tail to her den, marveling that she still cared for him despite everything. Sandstorm comes out from Bluestar's den with a stumbling, bleeding Tigerclaw and Brackenfur guarding him. Bluestar appears, head drooping and tail dragging. She is obviously destroyed. Graystripe limps out of the den at last, and Cinderpaw hurries to inspect his wounds. Quote, Bluestar raised her head and looked around. "Come here, all of you," she rasped, beckoning with a flick of her tail. While the rest of the clan were gathering, Fireheart patted over to Cinderpaw. "Can you give Tigerclaw anything for his wounds?" he asked. "Something to ease the pain?" He thought he had wanted to defeat Tigerclaw more than anything, but now he found he could not bear the sight of the once great warrior bleeding to death in the dust. "No, let him bleed!" Cinderpaw looked up from her examination of Graystripe. To Fireheart's relief, she didn't challenge his request for her to treat the treacherous deputy. "Sure," she meowed. "I'll fetch something for Graystripe as well." She limped away in the direction of Yellowfang's den. The clan cats had taken their places by the time she returned. Fireheart could see them looking at one another, uneasily wondering what all this might mean. Cinderpaw limped over with a wad of herbs in her mouth. She dropped some of them beside Tigerclaw and gave the rest to Graystripe. The deputy sniffed the leaves suspiciously and then began to chew them. Bluestar watched him for a moment and then began to speak. "I present you with Tigerclaw, now a prisoner." A chorus of worried murmurs interrupted her. The clan cats were looking at each other in shock and dismay. Fireheart could see that they did not understand what was happening. "A prisoner?" Darkstripe echoed. "Tigerclaw's your deputy. What has he done?" "Oh, like you don't know. No way you're innocent too, Darkstripe." "I'll tell you." Bluestar's voice sounded more even now, but Fireheart could see the effort it was costing her. "Just now, in my den, Tigerclaw attacked me. He would have killed me if Fireheart hadn't arrived in time." The sounds of protest and disbelief swelled even louder. From the back of the crowd, an elder let out an eerie wailing. Darkstripe got to his paws. He was one of Tigerclaw's strongest supporters, Fireheart knew, but even he was looking uncertain. There must be some mistake, he blustered. Okay, maybe he didn't actually know. Or maybe he did know and he's trying to cover for Tigerclaw. Bluestar raised her chin. Do you think I can't tell when a cat tries to murder me? She inquired dryly. But Fireheart sprang up. Tigerclaw is a traitor to the clan, he spat. He brought the rogue cats here today. Darkstripe rounded on him. He'd never have done that. Prove it, kitty pet. Fireheart glanced at Bluestar. She nodded and beckoned him forward. Fireheart, tell the clan what you know. Everything. So she's subtly acknowledging he was right all along, and she wants him to just let everything out on the table. Fireheart padded slowly to her side. Now that the moment for revealing everything had come, he felt strangely reluctant. It was as though he were pulling down the high rock, and nothing would ever be the same again. Cats of ThunderClan, he began. His voice squeaked like a kit's, and he paused to control it. Cats of ThunderClan, do you remember when Redtail died? Tigerclaw told you that Oakheart killed him, but he was lying. It was Tigerclaw who killed Redtail. How do you know? That was Longtail with the usual sneer on his face. You weren't at the battle. I know because I talked to someone who was, Fireheart replied steadily. Ravenpaw told me. Oh, very useful, growled Darkstripe. Ravenpaw's dead. You can tell us he said anything, and nobody can prove you wrong. Fireheart hesitated. He had kept the truth about Ravenpaw's escape a secret to protect him from Tigerclaw, but now that Tigerclaw was a prisoner, there could be no more danger, and he needed to reveal everything. Ravenpaw isn't dead, he explained quietly. I took him away after Tigerclaw tried to kill him for knowing too much. More uproar as each cat yelled their questions and protests. While Fireheart waited for them to settle down again, he glanced at Tigerclaw. As Cinderpaw's herbs did their healing work, the huge tabby had begun to recover some of his strength. He pushed himself onto his haunches and sat staring out over the crowd with eyes like stones, as if he were challenging any cat to come too close. The news about Ravenpaw must have shocked him, but he did not show it by a single twitch of his whiskers. When the turmoil showed no sign of dying down, Whitestorm raised his voice. Quiet! Let Fireheart speak. Fireheart tipped his head in thanks to the older warrior. Ravenpaw told me that Oakheart died when rocks fell on him. Redtail fled from the rockfall and ran straight into Tigerclaw. Tigerclaw pounced on him and killed him. It's true. Graystripe raised his head from where he still lay in the shade, with Cinderpaw pressing herbs to his wounds. I was there when Ravenpaw told Fireheart all this, and I've spoken to cats from RiverClan, Fireheart added. They tell the same story, that Oakheart died in a rockfall. Fireheart expected more noise then, but it never came. An eerie hush had fallen on the clan. Cats were staring at one another as if they could find a reason for these terrible revelations in the faces of their friends. Tigerclaw expected to be made deputy then, Fireheart went on, but Bluestar chose Lionheart instead. Then Lionheart died fighting ShadowClan, and at last Tigerclaw achieved his ambition. But being deputy wasn't enough for him. I think that he even laid a trap for Bluestar beside the Thunderpath, but Cinderpaw was caught in it instead. He glanced at Cinderpaw as he spoke, to see her eyes widen and her jaws open in a gasp of surprise. Bluestar, too, looked astonished. Fireheart told me his suspicions, she murmured. Her voice shook. I couldn't believe him. I trusted Tigerclaw. She bowed her head. I was wrong. But how could he expect to be made leader if he killed you? Asked Mousefur. The clan would never support him. I think that's why he planned this attack the way he did, Fireheart ventured. I guess he meant us to think that one of the outlaws killed Bluestar. After all, Fireheart's voice grew hard. Who would expect Tigerclaw, the loyal deputy, to lay a claw on his leader? He fell silent. His whole body was quivering, and he felt as limp as a newborn kid. Bluestar, Whitestorm spoke up. What will happen to Tigerclaw now? His question set off a crescendo of furious yowling from the clan. Kill him! Blind him! Drive him out of the forest! Bluestar sat motionless, her eyes closed. Fireheart could feel the pain coming off her in waves, the bitter shock of betrayal as she discovered the deputy she had trusted for so long was black at heart. Tigerclaw, she meowed at last. Have you anything to say in your defense? Tigerclaw swung his head around and fixed her with a yellow glare. Defend myself to you, you gutless excuse for a warrior. What sort of a leader are you? Keeping the peace with other clans? Helping them? You barely punished Fireheart and Graystripe for feeding RiverClan, and you sent them to fetch WindClan home. I would never have shown such kitty pet softness. I would have brought back the days of Tigerclan. I would have made ThunderClan great. Can't believe ThunderClan has their own version of MAGA. Art imitates life? Or does life imitate art? And how many cats would have died for it? Bluestar murmured, almost to herself. Fireheart wondered if she was thinking of Thistleclaw, the arrogant, bloodthirsty warrior she could not have let become deputy instead of her. If you have nothing else to say, then I sentence you to exile, the leader announced, her voice cracking. Every word seemed to be dragged out of her. You will leave ThunderClan territory now, and if any cat sees you here after sunrise tomorrow, they have my permission to kill you. Kill me? Tigerclaw spoke now, snarling his defiance. I'd like to see any of them try. Fireheart beat you, Graystripe called out. Fireheart. Tigerclaw turned his pale amber eyes on his enemy, and Fireheart felt his fur prickle at the look of unfettered hatred there. Cross my path again, you stinking furball, and we'll see who's the stronger. I can't believe his best insult is, yeah, well, you're stinky. Fireheart leaped to his paws, anger lending him energy. Any time, Tigerclaw, he spat. No, Bluestar growled. No more fighting. Tigerclaw, leave our sight. Slowly, Tigerclaw got up. His massive head swiveled back and forth as he scanned the crowd of cats. Don't think I'm finished, he hissed. I'll be a leader yet, and any cat who comes with me will be well looked after. Darkstripe. Fireheart craned his neck to see Tigerclaw's chief follower. He waited for Darkstripe to get up and go to Tigerclaw, but the sleek tabby remained in his place, his shoulders hunched wretchedly. I trusted you, Tigerclaw, he protested. I thought you were the finest warrior in the forest, but you plotted with that tyrant. Fireheart knew he was speaking of Broken-Tail. And you said nothing to me. And now you expect me to come with you? He looked away deliberately. Sounds like he's mad he wasn't included, not really mad at Tigerclaw's actions. Tigerclaw shrugged. I needed Broken-Tail's help to make contact with the road cats. If you choose to take this personally, that's your problem, he growled. Longtail? Longtail gave a nervous start. Come with you, Tigerclaw? Into exile? His voice shook. No, I can't. I'm loyal to ThunderClan. And you're a coward, Fireheart added silently, catching the fear scent as Longtail shrank back into the crowd of cats. Yup. For the first time, a look of uncertainty flickered across Tigerclaw's face as the few cats he had trusted turned him down. What about you, Dustpelt? He demanded. You'll have richer pickings with me than you ever will in ThunderClan. The young brown tabby got deliberately to his paws and picked his way through the surrounding cats until he stood in front of Tigerclaw. I looked up to you, he meowed in a clear, level voice. I wanted to be like you. But Redtail was my mentor. I owe him more than any cat. And you killed him. Grief and fury made his limbs shake, but he kept going. You killed him and betrayed the clan. I'd rather die than follow you. He turned and stalked away. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. He ate that up. A murmur of appreciation rose from the listening cats, and Fireheart heard Whitestorm whisper, Well said, youngster. Tigerclaw, Bluestar broke in. No more of this. Go now. Tigerclaw drew himself up to his full height, his eyes blazing in cold fury. I'm going, but I'll be back. You can be sure of that. I'll be revenged on you all. He padded unevenly away from the high rock. As he drew close to Fireheart, he paused, drawing his lips back in a snarl. And as for you, he hissed, keep your eyes open, Fireheart. Keep your ears pricked. Keep looking behind you. Because one day, I'll find you. And then you'll be crow food. You're crow food now, Fireheart retorted, struggling to hide the fear that crawled along his spine. Tigerclaw spat, then turned and walked away. The clan cats parted to let him through, every eye tracking him as he went. The great warrior was not completely steady on his paws. His wounds must be bothering him in spite of Cinderpaw's herbs, Fireheart realized. But he did not stop or look back. The gorse tunnel swallowed him up, and he was gone. Mic drop. That's the end of chapter 28. Getting into chapter 29, Fireheart watches Tigerclaw go, not feeling triumphant, but regret at what Tigerclaw could have been if loyalty outweighed ambition. The clan starts questioning who will be deputy now, but Bluestar disappears into her den. So no decision right now. Cloudpaw, of course, suggests Fireheart as deputy, and Darkstripe questions it because Fireheart was a kitty pet. Cloudpaw asks, what's so wrong with being a kitty pet? I love my woke son. Whitestorm breaks it up and reminds them that Bluestar will choose the new deputy at Moon High, as per clan tradition. Cloudpaw runs off to the other apprentices, clearly not processing the insanity of what happened. Graystripe asks if Fireheart wants to be deputy. Fireheart notices he looks a bit more alive after the fight, as if it took his mind off of his grief. Fireheart gets briefly excited about the concept of becoming deputy before realizing it would be way too stressful, and he believes Bluestar would never choose him. He asks about Graystripe's wounds, to which Cinderpaw says he'll be fine, but he needs some herbs for a scratch on his tongue, and to go fetch Yellowfang. So Fireheart goes to fetch Yellowfang. Quote, the last Fireheart had seen of Yellowfang, she had been dragging Broken-Tail into her den. She had not reappeared for the condemning of Tigerclaw. He padded across the clearing and into the fern tunnel. As he pushed through the soft green ferns, he heard Yellowfang's voice. Something about it, perhaps its gentleness, so unusual for Yellowfang, made him stay in the shelter of the arching ferns for a moment longer. Lie still, Broken-Tail. You have lost a life, Yellowfang was murmuring. You're going to be fine. What do you mean? Snarled Broken-Tail, his voice weak from loss of blood. If I've got another life left, why do my wounds still hurt? StarClan have healed the wound that killed you, Yellowfang explained, still in the same soft murmur that sent prickles along Fireheart's spine. The others need the skill of a medicine cat. Then what are you waiting for, you scrawny old pest? Hissed Broken-Tail. Get on with it. Give me something for this pain. All right, I will. Yellowfang's voice suddenly turned icy cold, and a ripple of fear coursed through Fireheart. Here. Eat these berries, and the pain will go away for good. Fireheart peered out of the ferns to see Yellowfang dabbing something with her paw. Carefully, deliberately, she rolled 3 bright red berries in front of the wounded Broken-Tail, guiding his paw until he could touch them. Suddenly, Fireheart was transported back to a snowy day in Leafbear. Cloudkit was staring at a small, dark-leaved bush that bore scarlet berries, and Cinderpaw was saying, The berries are so poisonous, we call them death berries. Even one could kill you. He drew breath to call out a warning, but Broken-Tail was already chewing the berries. Based move from Yellowfang, but also, holy crap, she is killing her own son. Yellowfang stood watching him with a face like stone. You and my clan cast me out and I came here, she hissed into his ear. I was a prisoner, just like you. But ThunderClan treated me well, and at last they trusted me enough to be their medicine cat. You could have earned their trust too. But now, will any cat trust you ever again? Broken Tail let out a contemptuous hiss. Do you think I care? Yellowfang crouched even closer to him, her eyes gleaming. I know you care for nothing, Broken Tail. Not your clan, nor your honor, nor your own kin. I have no kin. Broken Tail spat out the words. Wrong. Your kin has been closer to you than you ever dreamed. I'm your mother, Broken Tail. The blind warrior made a curious rasping noise in his throat, like a terrible attempt at laughter. Spiders have spun webs in your brain, old one. Medicine cats never have kits. That's why I had to give you up, Yellowfang told him, seasons of bitterness dripping from each word. But I never stopped caring. Never. When you were a young warrior, I was so proud of you. Her voice dropped to a low snarl. And then you murdered Ragged Star. Your own father. You killed kits of our clan and made me take the blame. You would have destroyed our clan completely. So now it is time to put an end to all this treachery. An end? What do you mean, you old... Broken Tail tried to rise to his paws, but his legs gave way and he fell heavily onto his side. His voice rose to a thin screech that chilled Fireheart to the bone. What have you done? I can't feel my paws. Can't breathe. I fed you death berries. Yellowfang's eyes were mere slits as she gazed at him. I know this is your last life, Broken Tail. Medicine cats always know. Now no cat will ever be hurt again because of you. Broken Tail's jaws parted in a cry of shock and fear. Fireheart thought he could hear regret there too, but the blind warrior was unable to put words to it. His limbs thrashed and his paws scrabbled in the dust. His chest heaved as he fought for air. Unable to go on watching, Fireheart backed away and crouched at the other end of the fern tunnel, shivering until the sounds of Broken Tail's last struggle died away. Then, mindful of Cinderpaw's request, he forced himself to go back, making sure that Yellowfang could hear him pushing his way through the bracken this time. Broken Tail lay motionless in the center of the small clearing. The old medicine cat crouched beside him, her nose pressed to his side. As Fireheart patted up, she raised her head. Her eyes were filled with pain, and she looked older and frailer than ever. But Fireheart knew how strong she was, that the sorrow she felt for Broken Tail would not destroy her. I did everything I could, but he died, she explained. Fireheart could not tell the medicine cat that he knew she was lying. He would never tell any cat what he had just seen and heard. Trying to keep his voice steady, he meowed. Cinderpaw sent me to ask you what to do for a scratched tongue. Yellowfang struggled to her paws as if she too could feel the numbing touch of deathberries. Tell her I'm coming, she rasped. I just need to fetch the right herb. Still unsteady, she staggered over to her den. She did not turn once to look back at Broken Tail's unmoving body. This calls for another damn! Everything is happening in these last chapters, man. I don't know how much more I can take. Fireheart sleeps early, exhausted. In his dream, Spotted Leaf appears and tells him, quote, StarClan is calling you. Do not be afraid. Not the be not afraid vision, and vanishes. Fireheart is afraid. Spotted Leaf just prophesized his own death, and he's so scared he wakes up. StarClan don't be vague challenge impossible. He is colder than usual, realizing the warriors are out in the clearing. Dawn is rising as he approaches them. Quote, Sandstorm pushed her way through a group of cats. Fireheart, she mewed urgently. Moonhigh has come and gone, and Bluestar hasn't named the new deputy. What? Fireheart stared at the pale ginger she-cat in alarm. The warrior code had been broken. StarClan will be angry, he murmured. We must have a deputy, Sandstorm went on, lashing her tail in agitation. But Bluestar won't even come out of her den. Whitestorm tried to talk to her, but she sent him away. She's still shocked about Tigerclaw, Fireheart pointed out. But she's the leader of this clan, retorted Sandstorm. She can't just curl up in her den and forget about the rest of us. Fireheart knew she was right, but he could not stifle a pang of sympathy for Bluestar. He knew how much she had depended on Tigerclaw, loyally defending him against Fireheart's accusations. She had chosen him to be her deputy, and had trusted him to help her lead the clan. She must be shattered to realize that she had been wrong all along, and that never again would she be able to count on Tigerclaw's strength and fighting skills. She won't forget, he began, and broke off. Bluestar was stumbling around the high rock from her den. She looked old and weary as she sat down in front of the rock, making no attempt to climb it. Cats of ThunderClan, she rasped, barely loud enough to be heard over the anxious muttering. Listen, and I will appoint the new deputy. Every cat was already turning toward her, and the clearing felt chillingly silent. I say these words before StarClan, that the spirits of our ancestors may hear and approve my choice. Bluestar paused again, staring down at her paws for so long that Fireheart wondered if she had forgotten what she was going to say. Perhaps she had not even decided yet who the new deputy should be. One or two cats had begun to whisper uneasily, but as Bluestar raised her head again, they stopped. The new deputy will be Fireheart, she announced clearly. As soon as she had spoken, she rose to her paws again and padded back around the rock on legs that seemed made of stone. Oh! The whole clan froze. Fireheart felt as though a thorn had pierced his heart. He was to be deputy? He wanted to call Bluestar back and tell her there must be some mistake. He was barely a warrior. Then he heard Cloudpaw's shrill voice raised gleefully. I knew it! Fireheart's the new deputy! Close by, Darkstripe snarled. Oh, yes? Well, I'm not taking orders from a kitty pet. Bro, please give it up. Please give it up. I'm begging. A few of the cats padded over to Fireheart and congratulated him. Graystripe and Sandstorm were among the first, and Cinderpaw, purring enthusiastically and throwing herself at him to give his face a thorough licking. Yeah, she might like him, I don't know. But other cats, Fireheart noticed, slipped quietly away and did not speak to him at all. It was clear that they were as startled by Bluestar's choice as Fireheart was himself. Was this what Spotted Leaf had meant in his dream when she told him that StarClan was calling him? Calling him to new responsibilities within his clan? Do not be afraid, she had told him. Oh, Spotted Leaf, Fireheart thought desperately, as fear and uncertainty flooded his mind. How can I not be afraid? That's the end of chapter 29. We're about to get into chapter 30, the last one of this book. Chapter 30 starts with, quote, Well, Clan Deputy, Whitestorm meowed softly in his ear. What would you like me to do now? Fireheart realized his offer was genuine, and he flashed the Great White Warrior a grateful glance. He knew Whitestorm could have expected to become deputy himself, and his support would be valuable to Fireheart in the days to come. Yes. Now, he began frantically, trying to think what the most urgent priorities would be. With a jolt, he realized that he was trying to imagine what Tigerclaw would have done. Food. We all need to eat. Cloudpaw, start taking Freshkill to the elders. Get the other apprentices to help the queens in the nursery. Cloudpaw shot off with a flick of his tail. Mousefur, Darkstripe, find yourselves 2 or 3 warriors each and go out on a hunting patrol. Split the territory between you. We'll need more Freshkill right away. And keep a lookout for those rogues or Tigerclaw while you're at it. Mousefur moved away with a calm nod, collecting Brackenfur and Willowpelt as she went. But Darkstripe glared at Fireheart for so long that Fireheart began to wonder what he would do if the Dark Warrior really refused to obey him. He met the pale blue gaze steadily, and at last Darkstripe turned away, meowing to Longtail and Dustpelt to follow him. All Tigerclaw's sympathizers, Whitestorm observed as he watched them go. You'll need to keep an eye on them. Yes, I know, Fireheart admitted. But surely they've shown that they're more loyal to the clan than to Tigerclaw. I hope they'll accept me if I don't tread on their tails. Whitestorm gave a non-committal grunt. Anything for me to do? Asked Graystripe. Yes. Fireheart gave his friend's ear a quick, friendly lick. Go back to your nest and rest. You were badly wounded yesterday. I'll bring you a piece of Freshkill. Oh, okay. Thanks, Fireheart. Graystripe returned the lick and vanished into the dead. Fireheart padded over to the pile of Freshkill, where we found Cinderpaw clawing a magpie out of the dwindling heap. I'll take this to Bluestar, she offered. I need to check her wound, and then I'll take some prey for Yellowfang. Good idea, Fireheart meowed, beginning to feel more confident as his rapid order seemed to be restoring things to normal. Tell her if she needs any help to collect herbs. She can have Cloudpaw once he's seen to the elders. Okay, Cinderpaw chuckled. You certainly know how to make your apprentices work, Fireheart. She bit down into the magpie and dropped it at once with a retch of disgust. The flesh of the dead bird fell away from the bones to reveal a writhing mass of white maggots. A foul stench hit Fireheart, and he winced. Cinderpaw backed away, passing her tongue around her mouth over and over again as she stared at the rotting carcass. Her dark gray fur was fluffed up, and her blue eyes wide. Crow food, she whispered. Crow food among the Freshkill. What does it mean? Fireheart couldn't imagine how the rotten magpie had gotten there. No cat would have brought it in. Even the youngest apprentice knew better than that. What does it mean? Cinderpaw repeated. Fireheart suddenly realized she wasn't thinking about any practical reasons for how maggot-ridden prey had ended up in the pile. Do you think it's an omen? He croaked. A message from StarClan? It might be. Cinderpaw shivered and stared at him with huge blue eyes. StarClan haven't spoken to me yet, Fireheart. Not since the ceremony at the Moonstone. I don't know if it's an omen or not, but if it is... It must be for Bluestar, Fireheart finished. His fur prickled as he realized this was the first sign of Cinderpaw's new powers as an apprentice medicine cat. You were going to take the magpie to her. He felt a thrill of horror at the thought of what the omen might mean. Was StarClan trying to say that Bluestar's leadership was rotting away from the inside, even though Tigerclaw's outer threat had gone? No, he meowed firmly. That can't be right. Bluestar's problems are over. Some cat's been careless, that's all, and brought crow food back by mistake. Nah, this is really sus. They could be right about the whole leadership thing. But he didn't believe his own words, and he could tell that Cinderpaw didn't either. I'll ask Yellowfang, she mewed, shaking her head in bewilderment. She'll know. Cinderpaw quickly snatched a vole from the heap and began limping rapidly across the clearing. Fireheart called after her, Don't tell any cat except Yellowfang. The clan mustn't know. I'll bury this. She flicked her tail to show she had heard and vanished among the ferns. Fireheart glanced around to make sure that no other cat had overheard their conversation or seen the decaying magpie. Bile rose in his throat as he gripped the bird by the tip of one wing and dragged it to the edge of the clearing. He didn't begin to relax until he had scraped up enough earth to cover the vile thing. Even then, he could not get it out of his mind. If the rotting, maggot-filled crow food was indeed an omen, what new disasters did StarClan have in store for ThunderClan and their leader now? I think it could either be a sign confirming Tigerclaw's treachery and that Fireheart was right all along, or that there's still traitors in the clan. So, Fireheart is about to go talk to Bluestar when the RiverClan cats show up again, presumably about the kits. They really will not give this up. Leopard Fur asks to speak to Bluestar. Fireheart decides to not let them know about the Tigerclaw situation, as they may be tempted to attack ThunderClan while they're weak. Bluestar is in her den, looking more like herself. Fireheart tells her that RiverClan is back, and she agrees to go meet them, unsurprised. Quote, when Bluestar had greeted the newcomers, Leopard Fur began. We've talked for a long time about Silverstream's kits, and we've decided that they belong in RiverClan. 2 RiverClan kits died yesterday. They had been born too soon. Their mother, Greenflower, has agreed to suckle these newborns. We think it may be a sign from StarClan. The kits will be well cared for here. Well, that's bold. They're well cared for here, Fireheart exclaimed. Leopard Fur glanced at him, but still spoke directly to Bluestar. Crooked Star has sent us to fetch them. Her voice was calm but determined, showing that she genuinely believed in her clan's right to take the kits. Besides, Mistyfoot added, the kits are older now, and the river has gone down enough to allow a safe passage across. They will be able to cope with the journey to our camp. Yes, meowed Leopard Fur with an approving look at the younger warrior. We could have taken the kits before this, but we care just as much about their welfare as you do. Bluestar drew herself up. Though she moved stiffly and she still looked exhausted, outwardly at least she had recovered the authority of a leader. The kits are half ThunderClan, she reminded Leopard Fur. I've already told you. I'll give you my decision at the next gathering. The decision is not yours to make. The RiverClan deputy's tone had an edge like ice. Well, it's not yours either, Leopard Fur. At her words, meows of protest rose from the assembled cats. Cheek, spat Sandstorm from where she sat close to Fireheart. That's another Britishism. Should I give them all British accents now? No, just kidding. I'm terrible at accents. Who does she think she is, walking in here and telling us what to do? Fireheart patted over to Bluestar and murmured in her ear, Bluestar, these are Graystripe's kits. You can't send them away. Bluestar twitched her ears. You can tell Crooked Star, she calmly addressed the visitors, that ThunderClan will fight to keep these kits. Leopard Fur's lips drew back in the beginnings of a snarl, while the ThunderClan cats yelled their approval. Then a louder meow rose above the rest. No! Fireheart's fur began to prickle. It was Graystripe. The big gray cat came to stand beside Bluestar. Fireheart winced when he saw the looks of suspicion that ThunderClan gave him, and how they drew back as he passed. The Graystripe seemed to have hardened himself against their hostility. Glancing first at the RiverClan patrol, and then at the cats of his own clan, he meowed. Leopard Fur is right. Kits belong with their mother's clan. I think we should let them go. Fireheart froze. He wanted to protest, but he could find no words. The rest of the clan was just as silent, except for Yellowfang, who muttered, He's mad. Still funny. Graystripe, think again, Bluestar urged him. If I let Leopard Fur take these kits, they are lost to you forever. They will grow up in another clan. They will not know you as their kin. One day you may even have to fight them. Fireheart heard the sorrow in her voice as she spoke, and saw her eyes straying to Mistyfoot and Stonefur. Her words were full of such bitter knowledge that he wondered how any cat could listen to her and not realize the truth about the kits their leader had lost so long ago. I understand, Bluestar, Graystripe agreed, but I've caused enough trouble for this clan. I won't ask them to fight for my kits. He paused and added to Leopard Fur, If Bluestar agrees, I'll bring the kits to the stepping stones at sunset. I give you my word. Graystripe, don't! Fireheart burst out. Graystripe turned his yellow eyes to his friend. Fireheart saw pain there, and measureless unhappiness, but also a determination that made him realize there was something in his friend's mind that Fireheart himself did not yet understand. Don't, he repeated softly, but Graystripe did not reply. Sandstorm pushed her nose into Fireheart's fur and murmured a few words of comfort, but Fireheart felt too numb to respond. He was vaguely aware of Cinderpaw nudging Sandstorm on the other side and whispering, Not now, Sandstorm. There's nothing we can say. Leave him be. Bluestar bowed her head for several long moments. Fireheart could see how much of her hastily summoned strength was ebbing away in the confrontation, and how desperately she needed rest. At last she spoke. Graystripe, are you sure? The Grey Warrior lifted his chin. Quite sure. In that case, Bluestar went on, I agree to your demands, Leopard Fur. Graystripe will bring the kits to the stepping stones at sunset. Leopard Fur looked startled to win an agreement so quickly. She exchanged a glance with Blackclaw, almost as if she were asking if there could be trickery here. Then we will hold you to your word, she meowed, turning back to the ThunderClan leader. In the name of StarClan, see that you keep it. She dipped her head to Bluestar and led her cats away. Fireheart watched them go and turned to plead once more with Graystripe, but his friend was already vanishing into the nursery. So at sunset, Fireheart waits by the gorse tunnel for Graystripe and his kits. Graystripe herds them out of the nursery, Goldenflower bidding them a tearful goodbye, her own kits nuzzling her and comforting her. This is so sad. Quote, Graystripe, Fireheart began, stepping forward as his friend approached with the kits. Don't say anything, Graystripe interrupted him. You'll understand soon. Will you come with me to the stepping stones? I need your help to carry the kits. Of course, if you want me to. Fireheart was ready to agree to anything that seemed to offer the smallest chance of persuading Graystripe to change his mind and keep the kits. The two warriors padded together through the forest, as they had done so many times before. They each carried one of the kits. The tiny scraps mewed and wriggled as if they wanted to walk on their own paws. Fireheart did not know how his friend could bear to give them up. Had Bluestar felt like this, he wondered, when she looked on her own kits for the last time before letting Oakheart have them? By the time they reached the stepping stones, the red light of sunset was fading. The moon was beginning to rise, and the river was a silvery ribbon that reflected the pale sky. Its liquid murmur filled the air, and the long grass on the edge of the shore felt fresh and cool beneath Fireheart's paws. Fireheart set down the kit he was carrying in a soft clump of grass, and Graystripe placed the other gently beside it. Then he moved away a pace or two, jerking his head for Fireheart to follow him. "You were right," he meowed. "I can't give up my kits." Sudden joy flooded through Fireheart. Graystripe had changed his mind. They could take the kits home and face up to the threat from RiverClan, whatever it might be. Then his heart froze as Graystripe went on. "I'm going with them. They're all I have left of Silverstream, and she told me to take care of them. I'd die if I were parted from them." "No!" Fireheart stared at him, his mouth dropping open. "What? You can't!" he gasped. "You belong to ThunderClan." Graystripe shook his head. "Not anymore. They don't want me, not since they found out about me in Silverstream. They'll never trust me again. I don't even know if I want them to trust me anymore. I don't think I've got any clan loyalty left." "Well, that sucks. What about Fireheart?" His words clutched at Fireheart's belly like the claws of an enemy, trying to tear it into shreds. "Oh, Graystripe," he whispered. "What about me? I want you there. I'd trust you with my life, and I'd never betray you." Graystripe's yellow eyes were brimming with sorrow. "I know," he murmured. "No cat ever had such a friend as you. I'd give my life for you. You know that. Then stay in ThunderClan." "I can't. That's the only thing I can't do for you. I belong with my kits, and they belong in RiverClan." "Oh, Fireheart. Fireheart," his voice trailed off into an anguished wail. "I'm being torn in two." Okay, so understandable, but you didn't have to be disloyal in the first place and have kits with, an outsider. Fireheart pressed close to him, licking his ear and feeling the trembling that racked his friend's powerful body. They had been through so much together. Graystripe had been the first clan cat he had ever spoken to, as a kitty pet lost in the woods. He had been his first friend in ThunderClan. They had trained together and been made warriors together. They had hunted in the hot days of Greenleaf when the air was filled with scent and the murmuring of bees, and through a bitter leaf bare when the whole world was frozen. Together they had discovered the truth about Tigerclaw and risked Bluestar's anger to do it. And now it was coming to an end. But worst of all, Fireheart could not find the words to argue with his friend. It was true that ThunderClan still mistrusted the Grey Warrior for his love of Silverstream, and they showed no sign that they would ever fully accept his kits. If they had fought to keep them, it would have been only for the honor of the clan. Fireheart could see no future for his friend or the kits in ThunderClan. At last Graystripe moved away and went back to call the kits. They stumbled up to him, mewling in tiny, high-pitched voices. "It's time," he meowed softly to Fireheart. "I'll see you at the next gathering. It won't be the same." Graystripe held his gaze for a long moment. "No, it won't be the same." Then he turned and carried one of the kits down the shore to the stepping stones, leaping over the gaps with the kit gripped safely by the scruff. On the opposite bank, a gray shape slipped out of the reeds and stood waiting while Graystripe returned for the second kit. Fireheart recognized Mistyfoot, Silverstream's best friend. He knew she would love these kits as much as her own. But no cat could feel more strongly for Graystripe than Fireheart had done for 4 long seasons. Never again, his heart was crying. No more patrols, no more play fights, or sharing tongues in the den after a day of hunting. No more laughter shared or dangers faced together. It's over. There was nothing he could do or say. He watched helplessly as Graystripe and the second kit reached the far riverbank. Mistyfoot touched noses with the Grey Warrior, then bent to sniff the kits. With unspoken agreement, she and Graystripe each picked up a kit, and all 4 cats disappeared into the reeds. Fireheart stayed there for a long time, watching the silver water as it slid past the shore. When the moon had risen above the trees, he forced himself to his paws and padded back into the forest. He felt a sadness and a loneliness greater than anything he had ever felt before, but at the same time he could sense a surge of energy rising from deep inside himself. He had revealed the truth about Tigerclaw and stopped the deputy from causing any more destruction within the clan. Bluestar had honored him beyond measure by choosing him to be her second in command. He could go on from this moment, guided by his leader, and with Spotted Leaf and StarClan watching over him. Unconsciously, his pace quickened, and by the time Fireheart reached the ravine, he was running, his flame-colored pelt a blur in the lilac dusk, eager to return to ThunderClan and his new life as their deputy. And that is the end of Forest of Secrets. It's Jover, bro. That was so depressing. Oh, I forgot how sad that was. How sad it was written. When I was reading it and taking notes and stuff, I almost shed a tear. I was like, dang. Man, well, Tigerclaw's gone. He's officially evil. Broken Tail's dead. Thank God. Bluestar seems to be unwell. Fireheart is the deputy now. And Graystripe just left to join RiverClan to be with his kids. That's a lot. That's a lot to process. The Erins did not play when they were writing this first series. I really wish the writing now, with the newer books that are coming out, was even close to as good as the writing was in these first books. That was quite an ending, don't you think? Feel free to let me know any thoughts in the comments or on socials. As always, I'm your host, Coffee. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I'll be back next week when we start the next book in the first series called Rising Storm. Thank you, and may StarClan light your path.